The winds of Chronovale shrieked through the skeletal pines, a mournful wail that clawed at Alara's ears as she trudged through knee-deep snow. The 16-year-old clockmaker's apprentice was a wiry silhouette against the storm, her patched leather coat flapping like a tattered flag, auburn hair lashing free from its gear-tied braid. Freckles stood stark on her wind-bitten cheeks, her hazel eyes narrowed behind fog goggles, and her breath puffed in ragged clouds. Around her neck hung a pendant, a small clock face, its golden glow pulsing faintly, ticking against the chaos like a heartbeat refusing to quit. In her gloved hands she clutched a satchel of tinker's tools, pliers, screws, a hammer. Her lifeline since old Tobin, her mentor, vanished into these cursed storms 2 winters past. "Damn this cold," she muttered, voice cracking with frustration and something deeper, grief she'd buried under layers of grit. "Nothing out here but junk and ghosts." She kicked at a snowdrift, uncovering a rusted gear, and stuffed it into her bag. Tobin's words haunted her. "Keep the clocks alive, Elara. They're Chronovale's soul." His workshop sat silent now, its once warm hearth cold, its ticking heart stilled. She'd been 10 when he took her in, an orphan with nimble fingers, teaching her to wind springs and align gears. Now, alone, she scavenged to fix it, to prove she could carry his legacy, even if it meant facing these storms that stole him. The wind surged, a brutal gust slamming her into a snowbank. She yelped, goggles fogging completely, and clawed her way up, cursing the sky. Her pendant flared, its ticking quickening, a warning she'd learned to heed. "What now?" she growled, brushing ice from her face. Then, a sound, low and guttural, rippled through the gale, a pained rumble that wasn't the wind. Her breath caught, heart thudding as she shuffled to the edge of a ravine, snow crumbling beneath her boots. She peered down, squinting through the swirl, and froze. There, sprawled amid shattered stone, lay a grizzly bear, massive and broken. A fallen clock tower spire, its jagged edge glinting with frost, pinned his hind leg, blood pooling dark against the snow. His shaggy brown fur, streaked with silver like veins of ore, was matted with ice, his chest heaving slow, labored breaths. One eye glowed amber, mechanical, its gears whirring faintly as if fighting to stay alive. The other, a deep brown, shimmered with agony. He growled, a weak, resonant plea that hit Alara like a punch. Bears didn't roam Chronovale, not since the storms began, driving wildlife away or freezing them in time's grip. She should have run. Every instinct screamed it. Run from this beast, this anomaly in a land of curses. But his brown eye locked on hers, raw and desperate, and her throat tightened. She'd seen that look before. Tobin's, the night he'd wound her pendant one last time, his hands trembling as he whispered, "You're stronger than you know." He'd gone into the storm after that, never came back. Tears stung her eyes, freezing before they fell. "Not again," she rasped, voice barely audible. "I'm not leaving you to die." She slung her satchel tighter, fingers numb as she gripped the leather, and took a shaky step toward the edge. The wind howled, snow biting her skin, but she slid down the icy slope, tools clanking, her heart a wild drumbeat of fear and defiance. She didn't know this bear, didn't know why he mattered, but she wouldn't let the storm claim another soul. Elara hit the ravine floor hard, snow exploding around her in a white cloud. She staggered upright, boots sinking, and faced the bear. Torin, though she didn't know it yet, his massive head lifted, amber eye flickering like a lantern on its last oil. Brown eye clouded with pain. His growl rumbled again, softer, almost a question, and she raised her hands, palms out. "Easy, big guy," she said, voice quivering but steady. "I'm not here to hurt you." She edged closer, pendant glowing brighter, casting a golden sheen across his wound, a deep, jagged tear where the spire crushed flesh and bone, blood seeping into the snow like spilled ink. Her satchel thumped to the ground, tools spilling out, pliers, a crowbar, a coil of rope, a hammer she'd clutched since Tobin's lessons. "Right, let's get you out," she muttered, grabbing the crowbar with both hands. She wedged it under the stone, her small frame trembling as she pushed, boots slipping on ice. "Come on, you bastard, move!" she grunted, sweat beading under her coat despite the cold. The spire shifted an inch, Torin roaring, a sound that shook her bones. Pain and relief mingled. She heaved again, muscles screaming, her breath puffing in frantic bursts. The storm surged, a deafening roar, and the air thickened. Unnatural. Wrong. Elara glanced up, heart lurching. A hawk hung mid-flight above, wings locked in a silent soar, snowflakes frozen in perfect stillness around it. Time stalled, the curse's first wave, a phenomenon Tobin had warned her about. "No, no, no!" she cried, her pendant flaring gold, its ticking a frantic pulse that kept her moving while the world held its breath. She threw her weight into the crowbar, desperation fueling her, and the spire lifted, just enough. Torin dragged his leg free, blood gushing, and collapsed with a groan as time snapped back. The hawk screeched, plummeting into the snow, and the storm resumed its fury. Elara stumbled back, panting, hands shaking as she dropped the crowbar. You're out," she gasped, half laughing, half sobbing. Torin's head turned, amber eye whirring, focusing on her. "Girl, why?" he rasped, voice deep and gravelly, like stones grinding in a riverbed. She jolted, nearly tripping over her tools. "You talk?" she squeaked, gripping the hammer now, instinct warring with awe. He swayed, massive frame trembling, and collapsed again, his breath shallow. Guilt stabbed her. She'd freed him, but he was fading. "Not dying on me," she said, voice fierce. She grabbed the rope, looping it around his bulk. Her hands brushed his fur, coarse and warm despite the cold, and tied it to her waist. "Come on, you big lump!" She pulled, boots skidding, every muscle burning as she dragged him toward a crevice in the ravine wall. The storm pressed down, snow blinding her, time threatening another freeze. Her pendant pulsed, a lifeline, and she hauled harder, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Tobin didn't give up on me," she whispered, throat raw. "I won't give up on you." Step by agonizing step, she pulled him into shelter, her heart a tangled knot of fear, hope, and a stubborn refusal to let go. The crevice was a shallow cave, its frost-glazed walls glinting in the dim light of Elara's pendant. She hauled Torin inside, his massive weight dragging furrows in the snow, her arms trembling with exhaustion. She collapsed beside him, breath fogging in the chill, and fumbled in her satchel for bandages, strips torn from Tobin's old blueprints, scribbled with gear diagrams now stained with her sweat. Torin lay heaving, his brown eye fixed on her, amber gears clicking faintly as if struggling to stay alive. She knelt, hands shaking, and pressed a strip to his wound, blood soaking through instantly. "Hold still, you oversized rug," she muttered, but her voice softened as he flinched, a low whine escaping his throat. She worked in silence, wrapping his leg tight, her fingers numb but precise, skills Tobin had drilled into her over years by the workshop fire. "You're a mess," she said, tying off the bandage, her hazel eyes flicking to his face. "What are you?" He shifted, snow crumbling from his silver-streaked fur, and his voice rumbled, slow and deliberate. "Torin. Once. Something else. Cursed now." Elara's hands froze mid-motion, heart skipping. "Cursed?" she echoed, leaning closer. "That eye, it's clockwork. How?" He growled, not at her, but at the weight of memory, his brown eye darkening. "I was Chronovale's guardian, served the sorcerer, my master. He turned on me, cursed me into this form, bound me with this." He tilted his head, amber eye glinting, gears whirring faintly. "The storm's his wrath, freezes time, traps all in its grip." Elara's breath caught, her pendant pulsing against her chest. She clutched it, Tobin's voice whispering through her. "The clocks keep us free, girl. Never forget." "This fights it," she said, holding it up, its golden glow casting shadows on the cave walls. "Tobin made it, said it holds the curse at bay." Torin's eye widened, a flicker of hope in its depths. "Then you're our chance, Tinker." She scoffed, a bitter edge to her laugh. "Me? I'm nobody, just a girl who fixes junk." But his gaze held hers, steady, desperate, cutting through her doubt. The great clock in his tower. It's broken. Fix it. End this storm. Free us. Her stomach twisted, the weight of his words sinking in. A sorcerer, a cursed land, and her, a scrap of a girl, as its savior? She looked at her pendant, Tobin's last gift, and memories flooded her. His rough hands guiding hers over a spring, his laugh when she'd fixed her first clock. He'd believed in her, even when she hadn't. Torin's pain mirrored her own, lost, abandoned, fighting to matter. Fine, she said, voice trembling but firm. But you're coming with me? I don't do this alone. Deal? He rumbled assent, a deep vibration that shook the cave, and she felt it, a thread tying them together, fragile but real. The storm howled outside, but in here, with Torin's steady breathing beside her, the loneliness that had gnawed at her since Tobin's loss felt a little less sharp. She wasn't ready, not for this, but she'd be damned if she let them both fall. They emerged from the cave into a maelstrom. The storm had thickened, snow lashing sideways in blinding sheets, the wind a feral scream that tore at Alara's coat. She led the way, her pendant a glowing beacon against the whiteout, its ticking a lifeline in the chaos. Torin limped behind, his massive frame a bulwark against the gusts, silver-streaked fur matted with ice. North, he growled over the roar. The tower's north. Alara nodded, goggles fogged, her boots sinking with every step as Chronovale twisted around them. The curse's grip tightened. A deer stood frozen mid-leap ahead, antlers glistening with ice, its eyes wide in silent terror. A river halted beside them, waves locked in crystalline peaks, fish trapped mid-swim. Alara's breath hitched, her pendant flaring as she pushed past, Torin's claws crunching snow beside her. Keep moving, she shouted, voice nearly swallowed. The ground rumbled. An avalanche loomed, rocks hovering mid-fall, time stilled in a deadly tableau. Torin, she yelled, yanking his fur. Her pendant pulsed, time snapped back, and boulders crashed inches from their heels, snow spraying like shrapnel. She stumbled, heart hammering, and Torin's snout nudged her up, warm against her icy coat. Thanks, she gasped, gripping his fur, coarse, solid, a tether in the madness. They pressed on, the storm's bursts erratic now. Birds dropped mid-flight, thudding into drifts. Branches snapped mid-sway, splintering like glass. Above, a silhouette flickered in the churning clouds. The sorcerer, cloaked, his staff pulsing blue, eyes like shards of ice watching them. Alara's blood ran cold, her pendant burning against her skin. He's up there, Torin warned, amber eye glinting with fury. Let him watch, she spat, fist clenching. We're not stopping. Her legs burned, every step a battle, but Torin's steady rumble kept her anchored. She remembered Tobin dragging her through a blizzard once, his hand tight around hers, laughing despite the cold. You're tougher than this, girl, he'd said. Now, with Torin beside her, she felt that strength flicker, a fire against the storm's chill. The tower loomed ahead, a black spire piercing the chaos, its jagged outline a promise and a threat. Fear gnawed at her, but so did something fiercer. Defiance, kindled by Torin's trust, by the memory of Tobin's faith. They were small against this curse, a girl and a wounded bear, but together they burned brighter than the storm's shadow. The tower rose like a skeletal beast, its stone walls cracked and weathered, rusted clock hands jutting from its sides like broken bones. Alara and Torin reached its base, snow piling around them, the storm's howl rattling the structure. Up there? She asked, voice trembling as she squinted at the spire's peak, shrouded in swirling white. Torin nodded, his injured legs shaking but steady, silver fur glistening with ice. The great clock's at the top. It's our only shot. She slung her satchel tighter, fingers numb as she pulled a rope and hook from its depths. Then we climb, she said, her hazel eyes flashing with a mix of dread and resolve. She swung the hook, its metal clanking against a gear protruding from the tower, and tugged it secure. Hold on, she muttered more to herself, and hauled herself up, boots scraping stone, her coat snagging on jagged edges. Torin followed, claws digging into cracks. his massive weight shaking loose pebbles that tumbled into the snow below. The wind screamed, tearing at her braid, and a time freeze struck. Ilara dangled mid-swing, rope taut, pendant glowing gold, while Torin froze mid-leap, amber eye locked in a glint of effort. Her heart stopped, breath held, until time snapped back. She caught a ledge, gasping. "Too close!" Torin roared, hauling himself beside her, his fur brushing her arm, warm despite the cold. "You good?" she panted, gripping the stone. He huffed, breath fogging. "Keep going, Tinker." Ice shards fell, the storm battering them. Alara's hands bled through her gloves, crimson staining the rope, but Torin's bulk shielded her from a gust that nearly ripped her free. She clung to him for a moment, his heart beat a steady thud under her palm, and managed a shaky laugh. "You're heavier than you look," he growled, a bearish chuckle rumbling deep. "You're smaller than you act." They climbed higher, a frozen clock face shattering under Torin's paw, gears raining down like broken dreams. Her arms ached, every muscle screaming, but Torin's presence, his gruff strength, his unwavering push, kept her moving. She thought of Tobin climbing with her once, up a windmill to fix its blades, his voice steady. One step, then the next. That's how we win. Now with Torin, she felt that echo. One claw, one pull, their breaths sinking in the storm. The pendant pulsed faster, a warning of danger ahead, but also a promise. They were close, so close, and she wouldn't let them fall. Not now, not after this. Halfway up, a platform jutted from the tower, its surface slick with ice, gears groaning beneath a blanket of snow. Ilara pulled herself over the edge, arms trembling, and reached down to help Torin, his claws scrabbling as he heaved his bulk beside her. "Almost there," she panted, brushing snow from her goggles, when the air thickened, unnatural, heavy, like a breath held too long. A figure emerged from the storm's swirl, the sorcerer, cloak tattered and black, eyes like cracked ice gleaming with malice, staff glowing an eerie blue in his gnarled hand. "You dare trespass?" he hissed, voice slicing through the wind, sharp as a blade. Ilara froze, pendant flaring gold against her chest, her breath catching as fear clawed her throat. Torin stepped forward, a low growl rumbling from his chest, silver fur bristling. "You did this to me," he snarled, amber eyes sparking with rage. The sorcerer sneered, staff tilting toward him. "You failed me, Guardian. Betrayed your oath." He thrust the staff forward. A time freeze locked Torin mid-lunge, claws outstretched, jaws open in a silent roar, his brown eye wide with fury. Ilara's heart lurched. "No!" she cried, ducking as a blast of ice shot past her, shattering a gear behind her. Her tools spilled, pliers, a wrench, screws clattering across the platform, and she scrambled to a shaft protruding from the wall, adrenaline surging. "Not today, you bastard!" she yelled, jamming pliers into the mechanism, twisting with all her strength. Gears creaked, time flickered, and it snapped back. Torin crashed into the sorcerer, who stumbled, vanishing in a swirl of snow with a guttural curse. "Coward!" Torin spat, limping to her side, his breath ragged. Ilara's hands shook, blood dripping from torn gloves, but she met his gaze, hazel eyes blazing through tears. "He's scared, Torin. We're close. I can feel it." The platform trembled, gears spinning wildly below, the storm roaring louder as if enraged. She gripped his fur, steadying herself, and felt his warmth seep into her, a lifeline in the chaos. "We're not done," she said, voice cracking with defiance. Torin nodded, his brown eye softening for a moment, and they turned to the spire's peak, the sorcerer's shadow lingering like a promise of worse to come. Her pendant burned against her skin, Tobin's faith echoing in its ticks, and she climbed again, Torin at her side. Two souls against a curse, unbreakable even as the world shook. They breached the tower's peak, staggering into a cavernous chamber where the great clock loomed, a colossus of rusted iron and bent hands, its gears silent, snow pouring through a shattered roof. The aurora pulsed overhead, green and purple ribbons casting an eerie glow on the frost-slick floor. Ilara's pendant burned hot, ticking wildly as she approached. tools clanking in her satchel, her breath fogging in the chill. "This is it," she breathed, voice trembling with awe and dread. Torin guarded the entrance, his massive frame tense, silver fur glinting as he scanned the shadows. "He's coming," he growled, and as if summoned, the sorcerer appeared, staff raised, cloak billowing. "Fool!" he snarled, voice a thunderclap, unleashing frozen gusts that swept the chamber. Torin charged, taking the brunt. Ice crusted his fur, his roar shaking the walls as he shielded Alara. She dove behind the clock, wrenching at a jammed gear, her hands raw and bleeding through her gloves. "Work, damn you!" she cried, tears freezing on her cheeks as she hammered at a cog, desperation clawing her chest. Torin roared again, pinned by a wall of ice, his amber eye dimming, and the sorcerer advanced, staff aimed at her. "Your time ends, child," he hissed, blue light flaring. Alara's heart pounded, memories flashing, Tobin's hands guiding hers, his voice steady. "Fix it, Alara. You're enough." She yanked a gear free, gears groaning, the clock shuddering as she slotted a pin into place. "Torin, hold on!" she screamed, pendant flaring gold. He broke free, slamming the sorcerer back with a roar that rattled her bones, and she struck the pin home. The clock ticked. Once, twice, a deep, resonant pulse that shook the tower. The storm faltered, the sorcerer staggering, screaming as his staff cracked, blue light splintering. Alara sank against the clock, sobbing, as Torin limped to her, his breath a warm huff against her hair. "You did it," he rasped, and she clung to him, the ticking a heartbeat of victory in the silence. The great clock roared to life, its hands spinning, gears grinding with a sound like a waking giant. The storm dissolved. Snow fell naturally now, soft and quiet, time flowing free once more. The sorcerer crumpled, staff shattering into shards of blue crystal, his form fading to a frail, gray-haired man, eyes hollow with defeat. "You freed me," he rasped, voice breaking, then vanished in a gust of wind, leaving only silence. Alara sank to her knees, pendant dimming, her tools scattered around her like fallen soldiers. Torin lumbered closer, silver fur thawing, and his amber eye glowed bright, then flickered out. His body shimmered, shifting, and Alara gasped as he became a man. Grizzled, broad-shouldered, in tattered robes, his brown eyes soft with recognition. "Torin," she whispered, stunned, her voice a fragile thread. He nodded, voice rough but warm. "The curse is gone, Tinker." She clutched her hammer, heart racing. Relief flooded her, but so did loss, a pang for the bear she'd fought beside. He shimmered again, choosing his bear form, silver streaks gleaming as he settled beside her. "This is me now," he said, nudging her gently with his snout, and she laughed, a shaky tear-soaked sound. "Good," she said, wiping her eyes. "I like the bear better." She leaned against him, his fur a comfort she hadn't known she needed, and they sat there, the tower settling around them, Chronovale thawing below. Tears fell freely now, for Tobin, for the fight, for this strange, fierce friend she'd found. "We did it," she whispered, and Torin rumbled assent, his presence a shield against the emptiness she'd carried too long. The aurora danced above, a witness to their triumph, and she felt it. Hope, fragile but growing, in the ticking silence. The climb down was slow, deliberate, the storm's echoes fading into a quiet snowfall. Ilara's hands bled through torn gloves, her coat ripped, her braid a wild tangle, but Torin's steady bulk beside her felt like an anchor. Chronovale breathed again, rivers flowed, their waters glinting under the aurora. Birds soared, their cries piercing the stillness. Pines swayed, shedding ice like tears. She clutched her pendant, its glow faint now, Tobin's voice echoing, "Keep the clocks alive." "I did it, old man," she murmured, a sob catching in her throat, her hazel eyes glistening as she pictured his craggy smile. Torin rumbled, his brown eye warm, amber gears silent. "You did more, Alara. You saved us. Chronovale me." She leaned against him, his fur soft against her cheek, and they reached the tower's base, the ravine now a cradle of melting snow, the spire a relic of their fight. She saw Tobin's workshop in the distance, its clock tower ticking faintly, a heartbeat restored and her chest ached, grief easing, purpose blooming. "What now?" she asked, voice small but steady. Torin's snout brushed her shoulder. "We guard this place. Together." She nodded, a pact sealed in the quiet, their breaths fogging in unison. She stumbled, exhaustion crashing over her, and Torin caught her with a nudge, steadying her. "You're not alone anymore," he said, voice a low rumble that settled deep in her bones. Tears welled again, not sorrow but release, a weight lifting she hadn't known she carried. She'd lost Tobin, but found Torin, found a fight worth winning. The snow crunched underfoot, a soft rhythm as they walked toward the workshop, her home, and she let herself feel it. Pride, fragile hope, the first stirrings of peace. Weeks bled into months, and Chronovel bloomed under a soft winter sun, its scars fading into a gentle frost. Ilara rebuilt Tobin's workshop, her hands steady now as she wound gears and polished springs, the hearth crackling with new life. Her pendant rested on the bench, a quiet keepsake, its ticking a memory rather than a shield. Torin patrolled the wilds, his bare form a sentinel, silver-streaked fur catching the light as he roamed the thawed rivers and pine groves. They'd meet at dusk. She'd tinker by the fire. He'd sprawl beside her, napping with a rumble that shook the floorboards, their bond unspoken but ironclad. One night, under the aurora's gentle shimmer, she sat cross-legged on the workshop floor, a small clock in her hands, brass and simple, its gears humming as she tightened a screw. Torin watched, his brown eye half closed, amber gears still and silent now, a relic of his past. "For you," she said, holding it out, her voice soft but firm. He took it in his massive paw, claws gentle, and rumbled, "For us." The ticking filled the room, a heartbeat for Chronovel, and Ilara smiled, truly smiled for the first time since Tobin's loss, her freckled face glowing in the firelight. She leaned against him, his fur warm, and watched the snow fall outside, soft, natural, no longer a curse. The storms were gone, but their story lived. A girl and her bear, forged in ice and fire, guardians of a land they'd saved.